to remind ministers to make sure that their answers go through the chair. Also invite all members to do that. The reason why that's done is so that there is always a sense that there is not personal attacks when members are asking questions or making responses. The honourable member from Foothills.
My constituents are fully aware that Liberals are taking away $2,900 and giving them back $1,800. That is not revenue neutral. But here are the facts. The Liberals are increasing the cost of food yet again on April 1st by increasing the carbon tax by 23%. This is driving Canadians to food banks in unprecedented numbers. The Caring Covered Food Bank in Prince Edward Island is struggling just to keep its doors open. It can't handle the increase in demand, up 70%, 5,500 families. I know the Prime Minister is bored, but will he listen to Canadians, axe the tax, so Canadians can put food on the table?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, it is very surprising to hear the member opposite talk about support for the most vulnerable Canadians. But I'm glad he is turning his attention there. So if he cares about the families of PEI, I want to understand, does he support our early learning and childcare system, which PEI has been enthusiastically a part of, which is putting money back in the pockets of PEI families? Does he support that? Does he support dental care that the seniors of PEI are enthusiastically supportive of? That is real support.
The honourable member from Vancouver East.
After 2 months, I'm aware of nearly 2,000 loved ones in Gaza are still waiting to receive a code from IRCC to reunite with their families in Canada. Clearly, the 1,000 arbitrary cap is a problem. And even for those with codes, not one person has made it to safety, not even people whose biometrics is completed. Meanwhile, families are reporting that their loved ones have been killed in an airstrike. Why can't Canada get people across the border when other countries can? And what will it take for the minister to lift that cap?
The Honourable Minister for Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It'll perhaps be cold comfort for the member opposite to find out that we are indeed increasing the number of people that will be eligible to come out of Gaza. There are a number of matters that are beyond our control, notably the ability to extract people from the Rafah Gate. That is something that falls within matters of other governments, which we plead with them to let those people out. But again, we will be relentless in advocating for people reunifying with their family members in Canada, if but for on a temporary basis. Thank you.
The honourable member from Hamilton Centre.
Starvation of civilians during war is absolutely prohibited under Article 54 of the Geneva Conventions. A UN food agency just reported that due to the Israeli siege on Gaza, 1.1 million Palestinians are facing catastrophic hunger. And the EU Foreign Policy Chief, Joseph Borrell, stated that Israel is provoking famine in Gaza and using starvation as a weapon of war. So my question is, did the Foreign Affairs Minister at any point during her high-level meetings with the 2 Israeli cabinet ministers named in the ICJ proceedings raise the plight of starving Palestinians in Gaza forced into famine by Israel?
The Honourable Minister for Foreign Affairs.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I did. And you know what? I will never shy away from having difficult conversations. Maybe with the Israeli government, maybe with the Palestinian Authority. And we need to make sure that we will continue to put pressure on Hamas, who is a terrorist organization, to release hostages. We support the discussions that are happening with Qatar, Egypt, the U.S., to make sure, and of course Israel, to make sure that the hostages are released. And we need to make sure that there's more humanitarian access to Gaza, including the support of UNRWA. Thank you so much.
The honourable member from Newmarket, Aurora.
Mr. Speaker, in recent months, we've heard lots of stories about Canadians with disabilities receiving unacceptable treatment while traveling with Canadian Airlines. Canadians with disabilities have the same rights as all of us. They deserve equal access and to be treated with dignity. The Minister of Transport said it best when he said, "Our airlines need to do a better job for Canadians." So, can he tell us what's happening next?
The Honourable Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleague for his amazing work, and I've been clear. What happened was completely unacceptable. All Kenyans must be treated with dignity and respect, full stop. Airlines have to do better. We all have to do better. And the Minister of Diversity, Inclusion, and Persons with Disability and I want to see action now, which is why I'm announcing an Air Accessibility Summit in Ottawa on May 9th. We have to work together to ensure a more accessible, a more inclusive Canada. This is about fairness, dignity, and respect.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. After 8 years of this Liberal government, Quebec farmers are feeling the pinch. Tax hikes, inflation, and carbon pricing, which the Bloc would like to radically increase, have led to a general feeling of frustration, according to the president of the Union des Producteurs Agricoles. He says with the rise in interest rates plus the increase in input costs, net farm income is plummeting, and we're talking about virtually zero net income in 2024. Will the Liberal and Bloc MPs listen to the farmers' frustration and vote against the 23% carbon tax hike on April 1st? The Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, I hope that the member across the way understands that Quebec, the province of Quebec, has its own carbon price system. This system was established in 2013 under Quebec's jurisdiction. And I think Quebecers have the right to know if the Conservative Party and the member across the way intend to demolish Quebec's system in place, whether they intend to do this. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. In the St. Lawrence region, 500 farmers escorted by 200 tractors. Also on the North Shore in Quebec City. It's a real cry from the heart that our farmers are launching across the province. While farm closures multiply, the Liberals, supported by the Bloc, think it's a good idea to raise taxes on diesel, Mr. Speaker. The Bloc Liberal coalition has increased the taxes for those who produce food so that Quebecers can they give up these taxes so Quebecers can continue to eat locally? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I feel that the Premier of Quebec was Mr. Legault and not the member across the way. And it's Quebec that has its own system for carbon pricing. This system is working very well. This system has the support of Quebecers, and the province supports it. We do respect Quebec's jurisdiction and that of the system it's established. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Liberal government, Canadians know that this government likes to meddle in provincial jurisdiction. Now, the latest attack is on woodland caribou. We support the 1,600 workers in this sector, but now this Liberal Environment Minister wants to meddle in areas that are none of his business. This question is for the Deputy Prime Minister. Will they not tell their Minister of the Environment to put aside his ideological politics and side with the workers instead? The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to remind my honourable colleague that more than a year ago, the Quebec government and the federal government signed a letter together under which we commit to protecting 70% of the caribou's habitat. And this agreement also set out consultations with the Indigenous peoples on this plan. The Quebec government committed to do this, and we expect the Quebec government to respect their word. Thank you. To keep their word. The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg au Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the former Judge DeLille was convicted of premeditated murder of his wife in 2012. The decision was upheld on appeal and at the Supreme Court. In 2021, David Lemeny intervened to request another trial, saying he was convinced that there had been a miscarriage of justice. But the report from the review group unveiled Thursday that there is no miscarriage of justice. is the government denouncing the preferential treatment given to the former Judge DeLille by the former Minister of Justice, David Lametti. I'd like to thank the member for his question. What I'd like to stress is that we're aware of the situation and we are going to follow up on this. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Quebec sets its own immigration targets, they say, and we've said this many times. It's even more unacceptable 2 weeks ago that the minister ordered his officials to exceed the threshold set by Quebec. It's a serious precedent. From now on, the federal government will interpret Quebec's immigration targets not as a decision, but as a suggestion. It's the imposition on Quebec of federal immigration policies inspired by the Century Initiative in direct affront of the spirit of the Canada-Quebec Accord. Will the minister back down and return to discussions with Quebec? The Honourable Minister of Immigration and Refugees. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm ready to answer the question when the member did read if you can reassure me that she did read the accord, the honourable member. I'll be pleased to say that I did do so. But the federal government has absolutely no lessons to give Quebec in terms of successful immigration. It's the federal government that has plunged immigrants into the worst housing crisis in recent years, and it's responsible for the service breakdowns for asylum seekers. It's the minister's fault that these people don't have the right to work to meet their basic needs. So no, we're not going to accept him unilaterally increasing immigration targets chosen by Quebec. Once again, will the minister respect Quebec's choices? The Honourable Minister of Immigration. Mr. Speaker, I have a question to ask the member across the way. What does she say to Quebec families who are waiting to be reunited with their families and their loved ones?
The Honourable Member from South Surrey, White Rock.
In British Columbia, the carbon tax is going up 23% on April 1st. After 8 years of this NDP Liberal government, middle-income families are depending on food banks. They receive absolutely nothing. No federal tax rebate, no provincial tax credit. But they do get higher prices for food, gas, and heating. 7 of 10 premiers are demanding the Prime Minister spike the hike, but the NDP Premier of BC is cheering it on. Will the Prime Minister stop the suffering and authorize Premier Eby to spike the hike on April 1st?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, as with the Conservative Quebec MPs, we are hearing a question that demonstrates either profound ignorance or profound disrespect of the system that the province of BC put in place. BC in 2008, led by a centre-right provincial government, put in place a world-leading price on pollution. That system is popular. That system was voted for by some current Conservative federal MPs from BC. Do they want to tear it apart?
The Honourable Member from South Surrey, White Rock.
Thank you, Ms. Speaker, and we absolutely do, because that was a baloney answer from this minister, and that's what we're getting from the BC Premier as well. There's 200,000 British Columbians relying on food banks in a single month now. The tax credit shell game, if you qualify, is way less than you pay. BC already has the highest gas prices, $2 a litre just this morning. A 23% hike will force up prices another 18 cents a litre. This Prime Minister isn't worth the cost. Will he show some compassion and authorize the BC Premier to spike the hike on April 1st?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, did the MP from BC just accuse the Premier of BC of putting forward baloney policies for the people of BC? So is the Federal Conservative Party intending to step on the jurisdiction of the province of BC? Is it intended to go against a system put in place in 2008 by a centre-right BC provincial government that the people of BC support? That is astonishing, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this NDP Liberal government, more and more British Columbians are lining up at food banks. That's not baloney. The fact that many can't afford to drive with $1.99 a litre gas isn't